So, a restricted list was added to the game that'll totally change up the meta. I guess that means I get to make a second tier list video to farm views.
Kar-D Kaizoku.
This video is sponsored by Mecha Japan. Mecha Japan is an online store that sells products from major Japanese licenses such as One Piece, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Dragon Ball, and more. They have worldwide shipping and they carry rare or very rare Japanese products that you can only find available on mechajapan.com. The prices are very nice and the customer service team is very responsive and always happy to answer you in English. Follow Mecha Japan on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram to get the latest updates and information on all your favorite products and also to get in on any new ongoing promotions. I'll also include a code in the description that'll get you $10 off all orders over $80. This code is valid only for 2 weeks, so use it while you can. I go to Japan pretty often and pick up figures while I'm there, so I know firsthand that the prices on mechajapan.com are pretty competitive with even the anime stores in the non-touristy areas. So Mecha Japan sent me a few goodies to show off. They arrived in perfect condition. They came in a box with the bubble wrap. As you can see, all these boxes are pristine condition. Very nice, very impressed. They sent me 3 figures and then a Navy starter deck. I believe these are all Ban Presto figures. Yeah, we have the Yamato and Ace from the Senko ZK figure line, and then the Osoba Mask Battle Record Collection figure. Let's get these open and see what they look like. Thank you again, Mecha Japan. Here's the Yamato figure. Very cool. It was back when his sleeves were not torn yet, when he first met Ace. This is my first Yamato figure, so I'm pretty happy that I got this. And here's the Ace figure. The flame effects are really cool. This is also my first Ace figure. Yeah, they sent me 3 One Piece figures because, you know, I really like One Piece, but they do sell figures from a bunch of other series too. Yeah, I believe these two come from like the same series, so they're supposed to like clash. Let me figure out how to orient this so it looks cool. Oh, it's on the box. Let me look at the box. Yeah, I think it's supposed to look something like this. Very cool. I'll put them laying down so you can see it on camera better. Let's take a look at the Osoba Mask figure. Who is Sanji, in case you didn't know. Spoilers. And here's the Osoba Mask's Sanji figure. Also my first Sanji figure. Most of my figures are Luffy and Law, because they're my favorite characters. But Sanji's cool too, and I like his Germa suit here. This figure is actually pretty huge. Yeah, the cool thing about Mecha Japan is that I didn't specify what they should send me, but they sent me like exactly everything that I like. So I think the people there actually care about anime as well, since they knew exactly what to send me. Yeah, we even have One Piece cards, which is exactly what my channel is about. This is my first time opening a Japanese starter deck, so let's see what it looks like and how it's different from the American one. Okay, it comes in 2 stacks instead of 1. So we'll just shuffle through it really quick. Yep, Tashigi is a 2K counter that's still used in black decks today. Oh, here's the leader Sakazuki. Very nice. Here are some Garps. I believe black decks do still use Garp to this day as well. Here's the Dawn for the deck. Here's the rest of the deck. I should have ordered it better so that the rares and the super rares are at the end. Whoops. Yep, Shockwave still used till this day. And Character Smoker, I believe some decks still run it, but there's also a lot of stronger black cards now. Very nice. Yeah, and I checked the website. They also have OP3.5, and I'm sure they'll have OP3.5 when it launches. So if you're interested in the Japanese cards, they have them available. Thanks again, Mecha Japan, for sending me this stuff. You guys should really check them out. I think they have a really good selection of stuff, and yeah, everything came in pristine, perfect condition. Couldn't be any happier with the stuff I got, so thanks. Back to the video. But Kardi Kaizoku, why do you make tier list videos if you hate them so much? Money! And because you guys like them? Not that I like my fans or anything. So I've been calling it the OP3 post-restricted meta, but I see some other people call it OP3.5, which is pretty genius, so I'll be calling it that from now on. Alright, first things first, this is just a speculative tier list. I'm basing this list off of only a week or two of playing post-restriction on the sim and the fact that I'm very familiar with the color they hit with the restricted list. I don't play in tournaments and I have no achievements to my name, but I have been posting gameplay content pretty much every day since the release of the game, if that counts for anything. I'm not going to bait you into watching until the end of the video by placing these one by one, so here's the list in its entirety. Some of you in the first tier list video didn't like that I grouped the lower end into one tier, so I broke it down a little further. The order within the tiers don't matter. We'll start off with the SS tier. I don't have any deck in the SS tier at the moment because 1, I think it's way too early to claim a deck as SS tier. And 2, I truly think the restricted list evened out the playing field a bit. So let's start off with the S tier instead. The S tier are decks that have favorable matchups to a majority of the rest of the meta, and their unfavorable matchups are still very winnable. We have 5 leaders here. First up is Whitebeard. The nerf did affect Whitebeard, but not in the way everyone was hoping. It definitely shortened the gap between him and every other leader. He drops from being the sole SS deck to being in S with the other meta decks. The funny thing about the restriction is that Zoro and Ace were some of the decks that could keep Whitebeard in check, thanks to being able to match Whitebeard's defense. But since having lost those cards, Zoro and Ace actually do worse into Whitebeard now. Whitebeard lists have shifted slightly in the aggressive direction by running more Ace and Rush Luffys, just like I predicted in my restricted list meta speculation video, which also makes them do better into yellow as well. Mid-range Zoro was hit decently hard by the restricted list, but still feels like an S tier deck. They lost a lot of defensive power, which makes it really hard for them to overextend the way they used to. This makes it so your search targets matter, the targets you hit with Fire Fist matter, the characters you save with counter matter, the dawn you use in your attacks matter. He will definitely be more math reliant and brain intensive without the security of 4 radical beams. Speaking of brain intensive, but in the opposite direction, that brings us to Aggro Zoro. It's a different enough deck that it warrants its own section. If you don't want to have to worry about any of the previously mentioned changes, just play this version of Zoro. There's still quite a degree of math involved, but it's mostly do I want to swing for 5 or for 7, depending on your opponent's hand and board state. Aggro Zoro was not hit at all by the restricted list and will continue to top the meta. Law goes up from A to S. He was also barely affected by the restricted list, losing out on only 1 copy of Radical Beam. Law also gains a lot from the restricted list. Whitebeard was a deck that kept Law from truly shining. It was just too easy to stop all the insane value you got from your leader ability. Law starts at 4 life and usually takes 1 to 2 to make their comboing more consistent. That means having to burn through Whitebeard's entire hand while surviving at 2 life. The hit to Red's defenses and removal of back-to-back 9-cost Whitebeard makes it possible to finish games with Law now, especially behind all the blockers you run. That brings us to Katakuri, who remains in S. He's the brain-dead deck of the format. People complain about Red being easy to play, but you at least need to do math. Yellow just does the same thing in every game against every deck. This flowchart-like strategy remains strong and will continue to be so throughout OP04. Big Mom also sees a rise from B to S. This is mainly due to the meta shift. The only edge that Katakuri had on Big Mom was the Whitebeard matchup. With Whitebeard being knocked down a peg, Big Mom goes up in viability due to her being better into Zoro and Law than Katakuri is. Big Mom is good into Katakuri himself as well. Next up is the A tier. A tier decks have many favorable matchups in the meta, but struggle somewhat in unfavorable ones if you don't get a good start. Film Kid stays in A tier. Kid gets a nice boost as well since they can actually end games with their Luffys and leader double swings now against Red. Film Kid decks exert a lot of pressure with many attackers. With less Whitebeard in the meta, the Namis, Brooks, and Usopps in the deck don't have to worry about needing 1 extra Dawn to attack into leader, freeing up Dawn to play even more characters. This may change once the masses realize Whitebeard is still top tier and switch back to him, but in a Zoro, Katakuri, and Law heavy meta, Kid does wonderfully. Magellan goes up from B to A. The restricted list helps Magellan finish games against the decks he had trouble winning against before. He was always good into Whitebeard since he swings for 6k often and delayed Dawn to prevent 9-cost Whitebeards. He just had trouble with Zoro. Though the matchup is still unfavorable, it's not unwinnable now. Lucci remains in A. He still has a chance to beat Whitebeard, but still loses to Zoro pretty bad. Smoker goes up from B to A. With Law and Zoro running rampant, Smoker's leader ability gets a lot of value. With the amount of defenses and removal to keep you alive, you'll eventually overwhelm them with 7k swings every turn. I'd even say he's better than Lucci in the current landscape. Doflamingo also shoots up from B to A. Doflamingo has always been naturally good into Zoro, so this is just a consequence of the meta shift being Zoro heavy. He does a lot better into aggro Zoro than mid-range Zoro. We'll move on to the B tier. These are still pretty good decks. They have a few favorable matchups, but unfavorable matchups can feel like an uphill battle. Ace drops from S to B. Funnily enough, Ace is the biggest loser from the restricted list. Being a control-oriented red deck, losing out on that much defense makes it really hard to do your main job safely. Odin goes up to B from C. This is a very control-y deck that revolves around protecting 8-cost Kid. With the ubiquity of Zoro in the meta, it gives a chance for green to shine, as green has always been a color that was very good into Zoro. Odin provides many avenues to keep Dawn open for events, making it easier to protect Kid. But unfortunately, yellow is the gatekeeper for Odin being any higher. 8-cost Katakuri deals really well with Kid, and all your defensive tools can't stop a 10-cost Big Mom from making you take a life. Everything else in B is the same as my initial tier list, so I won't go over them. From here on out, I broke down the tier list a little further because you guys wanted the really crappy decks to be separated from the even more crappy decks for some reason. So we'll go to the C tier. These are decks with some niche, favorable matchups, but they lose heavily in unfavored ones, making it really risky to bring to tournaments. We have Arlong, Z, and Nami here. All die to Zoro, basically, but can stand a chance against slower decks. Next is the D tier. These decks are at least playable and can even win if your opponent bricks. In this tier, we have Iceberg, King, and Kaido. Next is the Peepee tier. These decks have many unfavorable matchups and almost no favorable ones. We have Blue-Purple Kaido, Ivankov, Red-Green Luffy, Green-Blue Sanji, Blue-Purple Crocodile, and Red-Black Garp here. Lastly is the Poopoo tier. These decks simply cannot win. The Poopoo tier is populated with Sakazuki, Uta, and Shanks. And just like the initial tier list, we still have Luffy in Schrodinger's tier, where he's both a top tier and low tier deck at the same time. I predict Luffy may show up in some top 8s, but no one will know why. Is Luffy's secret OP? Did those few Luffy players just get lucky? Who knows for sure. So this wraps up my OP3.5 tier list. Overall, I like the changes the restricted list has on the meta. I just didn't agree with the timing, being 3 weeks into the meta. It shook things up in unexpected ways and also some expected ways as well. I truly believe and hope for this tier list to be wrong, as it would be exciting to see the English meta truly deviate from the Japanese one, but we'll just have to see what people come up with over the next few weeks. As always, I expect to see your salty comments about why your gimmicky dual color leader that you spent your rent money on an alt-art card for deserves to be much higher. Okay, bye.
Car D Kaizoku.